Hi, my name is Paul Pasolka, Ivy Masters Learning Center and ivymasters.com. And today we're going to look at Test 5, Section 2, Number 9, which reads, for example, researchers from the National Museum of Brazil has relied on this technique to study fossilized skeleton that was discovered protruding from a rock at an old Sao Paulo railroad site. So I just copied the for example researchers from the last page so we don't have to scroll back and forth. And what part of speech are these answer choices? These answer choices are verbs. So there's two things to check for when a verb is underlined. You got to check tense, whether it's past, present, or future, and subject-verb agreement, whether it's singular or plural based on the subject. I recommend checking for subject-verb agreement first because oftentimes that's all you got to check for. There's only one answer choice that will fit the subject. So we want to identify the subject. What is the subject? Who or what has or have relied? So a couple of things when identifying subject-verb agreement. One is you want to eliminate any phrase between matching punctuation, if there's a comma before and after, or a dash before and after, or parentheses before and after. We don't see that here, but what we do see are prepositional phrases. We've got to eliminate prepositional phrases. From the National Museum is a prepositional phrase. We got to take it out when identifying subject-verb agreement. Of Brazil is another prepositional phrase. Take it out when identifying subject-verb agreement. And then when you put the subject right next to the verb, it's easy to identify subject-verb agreement. So here we could see that the subject is researchers. And we could also ask ourselves, who or what has or have or whatever relied on this technique? And it makes sense that researchers. And would you say researchers has relied? Well, if it's difficult to determine if that sounds good or bad, hopefully it does sound bad, but you could always replace plurals with they, replace singulars with he or she or it. So they has relied, that doesn't work. They relied, that could work. They will rely could work. They is relying does not work. So among our remaining answer choices, we have to see the tense. So let's see, in order to check for verb tense, usually what you're doing is you're checking for the verb in the sentence before, the sentence after. Usually that'll give you a hint as to what tense you should be in. So the sentence before, we have, because CT scanners can map objects that are impossible to excavate, CT scanning and 3D printing can also be used to reproduce fossils that scientists cannot observe firsthand. And so in the previous sentence, we see that we're in present tense. Can map, are, can be used. It's all present tense. Now, when you're asking yourself this question, so would it be researchers will rely on this technique to study skeleton? Discovered. So the verb after is an ed verb. It makes sense that this would have to be in its past tense. It'd have to be some occurrence that already happened, especially since discovered. Within the sentence itself, the verb after the underline is in its past tense, so answer choice B is correct. Relied. For example, researchers relied on this technique to study a fossilized skeleton that was discovered protruding from a rock at an old Sao Paulo railroad site. Thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, click like. You could share it with someone who has trouble with tense and subject-verb agreement. If there's any question you'd like to see answered from any official PSAT or SAT or ACT, you can leave that in the comments. I'd be happy to shoot a video on it. And click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Have a great day.